97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on a Tuesday edition of Game Night, the 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have a lot to get to today on the show. We got Bob Hennig from Sports Illustrated joining us coming up in about 20 minutes from now to get more into Tiger's back. Well, he's at least looking and talking and acting like he's going to play at the Masters for the first time since November of 2020. Remember that the Masters late in 2020 due to the pandemic, lockdowns and everything. So Tiger didn't play last year because of the car accident he was in. And we'll ask Bob his perspective because Bob is coming out with a new book about the rivalry between Tiger and Phil Mickelson. So we'll get into it with him about what it means for Tiger to win not the tournament, but maybe win the rivalry, because Woods is at the Masters this weekend and Mickelson will not be at the Masters this weekend. Plus, we're going to talk more of the reaction from yesterday's trade. Eagles, of course, now with only 2 first-round picks instead of 3 first-round picks. And tonight, Sixers are back in action, taking on the Pacers. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Coverage begins coming up at 7 p.m. Tom McGinnis calling all the action here in your home for the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, the NCAA tournament, Super Bowl 56, and more. 97.3 ESPN FM. And as always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973 is the text board, and you can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. One of the things I've noticed in the aftermath of the trade yesterday is you see a thing like, Todd McShay's mock draft, which is over at 97.3 ESPN.com right now. Or you see other people talking about different things. I got to tell you guys, I don't think people are very aware of what the Eagles are doing. And this is not a diss to anybody who covers the organization, the national media, or beat writers, anybody. But unless, and I've said this before about different things, unless there's information that we don't have readily available to us, the fact that someone like Todd McShay, who's one of the top draft prognosticators, analysts out there, thinks the Eagles would draft a linebacker in the first round, frankly, perplexes me. Look, I understand McDuffie from Washington. The Eagles need a cornerback, and he's one of the 5 best corners in this draft. But I don't understand why these people are having the Eagles draft a linebacker, because unless they know something that everyone who has covered this team doesn't know, I don't see a scenario the Eagles draft a linebacker. Because number one, they haven't drafted a linebacker since the late 70s in the first round. Number two, this organization has not shown a tendency or an inclination or anything to investing a lot of resources in linebacker. Even Kazir White, who they signed this offseason, they didn't give him a ton of money, a massive contract. They gave him what you would consider maybe market value, but they didn't overpay to get White. They didn't overpay to get any of their linebackers in recent years. The last time they invested anything legitimate, anything real, anything substantive in getting the linebacker, it was going out and getting Nigel Bradham. Since then, everyone, TJ Edwards was an undrafted free agent, Alex Singleton an undrafted free agent, Eric Wilson was a free agent signing, Davion Taylor was a 3rd round late pick in the 3rd round. It's not like they're investing big money or 1st round picks in the linebackers. So what makes 2022 the year that the guy who's running the Eagles, Howie Roseman, suddenly says, you know what? I had an epiphany. I'm going to draft a linebacker. I just don't see it. I don't see that happening as of right now. And again, unless there's information presented to say otherwise. Look, you guys know me. I love Nakobe Dean. If the Eagles would end up with Nakobe Dean, I'd be thrilled. I'd be ecstatic. But I don't think it's going to happen. Again, being a guy doing a mock draft because you think that's what the team should pick versus what the team will pick are two completely different things. The problem is a lot of these draft analysts, it's hard to tell which is which. Are you projecting who you think they should pick or who the team will pick? These are two totally different scenarios. Look, when Mike Tannenbaum did his mock draft for this year, he based it on if he was the GM of that team, who he would pick. That makes sense to me. I can rationalize that because he's saying, honestly, look, I don't have any special inside information, but I'm telling you based on my analysis and what I know at the league, this is who I would pick. That I can get behind. I cannot get behind some of these mock drafts because, again, I just think it's misleading to sit here and say, well, this is what's going to happen when, again, precedent says otherwise. I think for the Eagles, I definitely see them taking a corner because you have a situation where they not just need a cornerback, but they also haven't filled that void in years. Let's be realistic. Unless they go out and sign a guy late in the free agent process this year, I don't foresee a scenario that they're going to get a corner except for in the draft because they drafted corners before. Now, depending on which, draft list you look at and who you're asking and all that stuff, really comes down to who the Eagles should or shouldn't get. You heard Sal Palantonio earlier today on the Sports Bash tell Mike Gill, I don't want any Pac-12 guys. For him, a guy like Trent McDuffie is off the list. He doesn't want to consider him because of his size and because of his conference. But Todd McShay thinks very highly of Trent McDuffie. So you have one person at ESPN versus another. They can't even agree on that. Most reasonable people believe that Sauce Gardner is the number one cornerback in this draft. And the problem with Gardner is that there's a lot of people who like him, but they are not all in the top 10 in this year's draft. A lot of people like Derek Stingley. I have apprehensiveness because of his injury history. Andrew Booth is considered one of the 5 best corners in this draft. Booth is a guy who is not the biggest or the smallest guy, but he has shown an ability to play well. He's just inconsistent in his playing ability. Duffy had a very good career at Washington, but he's leaving after his sophomore year, and he's a little smaller than the other guys on the list in terms of height and weight. And depending on whose prospect rankings you look at, you got guys like Elam from Florida, Kendrick from Georgia, Emerson from Mississippi State, McCreary from Auburn, Waller from Virginia Tech. There's a lot of guys out there. So there's a way you can get a quarterback, but will be in the first round. I still fall back on the reality that the Philadelphia Eagles have a long history of drafting linemen. And if you were to ask me right now, who do the Eagles get with one of those 2 picks? I'm going to go under the working assumption that it's going to be a lineman. 2 names that keep coming up and again are Travon Walker and Jordan Davis, 2 of the linemen from Georgia. They are both guys who can play up and down the line. They're both freak athletes. They're both disruptive forces of nature. There's a possibility that either one of them are there when the Eagles are picking. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles grab either one of those guys. Maybe Leal from Texas A&M, although it doesn't feel like a guy who the Eagles would draft just because of his, his body type and his skill traits. But as I said, I'm looking at the D-line and saying you just gave Fletcher Cox a 1-year contract after throwing out his previous contract. You drafted Milton Williams already. Javon Hargrave's contract will expire a couple of years. Whether it's a guy like Walker or Davis or Wyatt, 3 guys from Georgia, I can see any one of those guys go to Philadelphia. Because at the end of the day, the Eagles value the interior. Now, I wouldn't be surprised they walk out of this draft with a pass rusher in the first round. The issue I have is that when you talk about guys like Karlaftis from Purdue and Johnson from Florida State, the concern I have is, do those guys fit what the Eagles want to do? I think Johnson and Hassan Reddick makes sense as a 1-2 situation, Reddick being the 1, Johnson being the 2 on the edge. But is Johnson ready for that kind of responsibility? I think at Florida State, he showed a lot of talent, but I don't know if he's the kind of guy who is a day 1 guy. Karlaftis, I think, is a day 1 guy. The problem with Karlaftis is, does he fit in the Eagles' defensive scheme as much? Because the Eagles like to move their guys around, whereas Karlaftis was not somebody who was playing up and down the entire line. He would change ends of the line at times at Purdue, but he wasn't playing a lot of interior versus exterior like some of the guys the Eagles want to use. So it's an interesting question. David Ajabo has been mocked by people to go to the Eagles. He's coming off of an injury. You have a guy like Drake Jackson who's going to go in the second round. A lot of people like him, but he's not going to go in the first round because he doesn't have the physical explosive traits that the other guys do. So I'm still looking at the defensive line as a way the Eagles go. I just don't see a scenario where they get a linebacker. I still hang on to the fact that they worked out Treylon Burks, and he's a guy they have an eye on. I also wouldn't be surprised to get Williams from Alabama because they have a history of going Alabama before. The Eagles front office apparently really likes Alabama players, and frankly, how can you blame them? Alabama has not exactly produced a bunch of bums. They produced some phenomenal talent in the last decade. So if you go get Williams, yes, he's coming off of an injury, but it wouldn't exactly be a bad pick because you're getting a guy who, if he wasn't injured, might have been the number 1 receiver taken in the draft. Instead, he'll probably be the 3rd or 4th guy because he's coming off of an injury. And that might be a value pick for you. So a lot of things to keep an eye on heading into the draft. I love draft season. I love talking about picks. I think that this organization has a tendency to go certain directions. And I think that those tendencies will play out in this year's draft. Text board is open at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Also, you can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City with your messages a little bit later in this hour. But on the other side, we're going to talk with Bob Hennig from SI. Bob is coming out with a new book about the rivalry between Tiger and Phil. And as I said at the beginning of the show, Tiger said today he plans on playing. Now, the significance of this is that Tiger has not played in the Masters in almost 2 years. He is there. Phil is not. And Bob is author of the new book about the rivalry between Tiger and Phil called Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry, Tiger and Phil. Bob Hennig will join us next. The longtime golf writer now with Sports Illustrated joins us next here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
It beat for three. That's up and good. He nailed it. It's a 1-point game. The crowd rises.
The Sixers are in Indy to face the Pacers. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
All you need to know is at Matt Blatt Kia in Egg Harbor Township or Toms River. If you have a job clearing $350 per week, you could be approved with zero down, 0.9% financing for 60 months, or $1,000 cash back at Matt Blatt Kia on every clearly marked new Kia in stock. Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. And don't forget, you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
Gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. $1,705 for $1,000 for 60 months. $1,000 off all 2022 Stingers. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Expires 4/6/2022. If you have a job clearing $350 per week, you could be approved with zero down, 0.9% financing for 60 months, or $1,000 cash back at Matt Blatt Kia. 6211 on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
You're the one everyone looks to for answers. Come rain or shine, the job must get done, and you're the one who makes it happen. We get you, Jackie in Fresno, putting your employee safety first. And Manny in Chattanooga, whose local Granger team knows him by name. We're here for you and all the ones who get it done, with 24/7 customer support and access to product specialists to help you find what you need. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Progressive presents Forced Metaphors about bundling your home, auto, and other vehicles.
In hockey, it's the goalie's job to protect the net. And in life, your net is your home and auto, but also your boat, motorcycle, RV, or ATV. And your goalie is the round-the-clock protection offered by Progressive Insurance. Well, it's also the savings you get when you bundle. So in this metaphor, you have two goalies, which is okay because, it's just a metaphor.
Forced Metaphors, presented by Progressive. Bundle and protect today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Hot weather is coming, and if your central air system was struggling to keep up with last year's temperatures, or your AC electric bill was sky high, it will be worse this summer with rising energy costs. Call Jenkins Plumbing and Heating today about a new system from American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, or a high-efficiency boiler from Bosch. Take advantage of spring manufacturer rebates, along with rebates through the HVAC Energy Efficiency Program from South Jersey Gas. Go to southjerseygas.com for more info. And to make your new system even more affordable, get up to 0% financing for up to $15,000 for 7 years. Atlantic City Electric is also helping residential customers in New Jersey increase energy efficiency and reduce the cost of heating and cooling their homes with additional rebates. So don't wait. Call Jenkins. They have units in stock, and ask about American Standard or Bosch. Call 609-641-6262. Online at jenkinsandsons.com.
Jenkins Plumbing and Heating. We're always here for you. Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage? Keep your engine at its best with clean oil from Pennzoil Platinum Full Synthetic. Got an older vehicle? Use Pennzoil Platinum Full Synthetic High Mileage. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life oil filter for only $35.99. Get what you need for better fuel efficiency at any of our 6,000 stores or on AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
With basketball season in full swing and UFC every weekend, it's time for you to experience sports betting done right at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Atlantic City Casino and Resort. Get in on all the games you love at the FanDuel Sportsbook located right off the Atlantic City Boardwalk. The retail sportsbook features 5 betting windows, a large video wall, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and much more. Get your game face on and score big when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook only at Bally's Atlantic City Casino and Resort. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here in the Matt Blatt Kia studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Coming up in about 35 minutes from now, your final chance today to win. A chance to be the grand prize winner. All qualifiers for the Eagles draft party. Your chance to go on the Eagles road trip is the grand prize. Of course, that's Slack Tie Brewing Company on Route 83 in Cape May Courthouse, Thursday, April 28th. Sports Passion Mike Gill will be live there. Your chance to win, all courtesy of Philly Sports Trips and Ernest & Son Old Fashioned Butcher Shop. But right now, we got to get into the Masters. This weekend, could we see not just the return of Tiger Woods, but the triumphant return? Interestingly enough, Tiger is at Augusta, and his biggest rival, Phil Mickelson, is not. Talk more about that right now. Is Bob Harig, longtime golf writer, now with Sports Illustrated, and coming out with a new book, Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry. He joins us right now here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Bob, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I want to start with that point because, first of all, I'm looking forward to this book coming out because, you know, I checked out the notes and everything on it, and I already downloaded it and ordered it on my Audible. But I got to tell you, I think part of the rivalry also is going to happen this weekend because Tiger's there, not being there last year at all. And Phil, because of things that he said and did off the field, is not there. And I think that's an incredible dichotomy.
There's no doubt. You know, I wish I had a few more months to add in some of this stuff because, you know, it's been a pretty amazing last couple of months as far as Tiger and Phil are concerned. I mean, you know, they still remain relevant. It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on with Phil and how he sort of finds himself in this controversial predicament and not playing the Masters. And here Tiger looks like he's going to play. I mean, can you imagine the odds he could have gotten on that 2 months ago? You know, when we really thought that there was no reason for Phil not to play, and there was very little reason to think that Tiger could play. It's completely reversed, and here we are with, you know, again, a pretty amazing story going into the Masters.
Tiger said today that he expects to play. We've heard guys like Justin Thomas and Freddie Couples say that he looks great. Tiger himself said the big challenge will be the walking. That's not the actual hitting the ball that is going to prevent him from doing things. When you hear him say those things, what is your read on him at this point?
My read is that his game must be in decent shape because I can't imagine that he'd come out here with all the questions about just being able to get around the course physically and then have a game that's not any good. You know, the last thing he wants to do is be really struggling with his game. And I guess, you know, I would think that he must feel confident that he's hitting his irons well, that his short game is good, that he can get the ball out there far enough. It appears that that's been the case. You know, if you didn't know that there was an issue with Tiger and you just watched him hit shots, you'd never think there was a thing wrong. You go, what's the big deal? You know, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any back problems right now. He doesn't seem to be impacted too much by his right leg in swinging the club. I think people who study that really closely, instructors, would probably be able to tell you there is a difference. You know, he might not quite load as much weight on his right side as he would have before, but everything else looks really good. The difficulty is getting from point A to point B for 18 holes. And, you know, the longer it goes on, probably the more sore it gets, the more it starts to bother him, you know, and then you've got to rest and recover and do it again the next day. And I think that's the mystery in all this. I think he wonders how it's going to be because I can't imagine that he spent a lot of time just walking 18 holes 4 days in a row. I'd be surprised if he's done that at all, you know, for fear of overdoing it. So now he's going to try, and obviously he needs to make the cut first for some of this to come into play. But you know, you throw in one of the most demanding walks in golf at Augusta National, and the challenge is even greater.
Bob, is there anything we can take? And I know it was a long time ago, but in 2008, when Tiger had that double stress fracture, he won the U.S. Open. we all remember the images of him collapsing in pain at times, leaning on his putter. He almost looked like he was going to quit at times, but he persevered, won the Open. Is there anything to be taken from that time to what maybe Tiger is doing now?
I think the only thing is pain tolerance. He clearly has an ability to deal with that, because that couldn't have felt good. And my guess is that probably felt worse. With every step he took, he winced, and certain swings hurt his knee. I don't think the swing hurts his leg now. I just think it's the walking part. And so just from a pain tolerance, I think that's the issue. He can probably draw on that to some degree, to look back on that and say, look, I made it through that. I can make it through this. But I think this is more of a, sort of I would guess it's a dull pain that gets worse as the day goes on. And then, it starts to affect your swing. And, when your legs get tired, you're not going to move as well through the ball. So that wasn't really a problem, I don't think, at Torrey Pines. It could at the 08 U.S. Open. It could be now. I think these are going to be good questions for him at the end of the rounds if we can get those to him.
We're talking with Bob Herrick from the Sports Illustrated, author of the new book coming out in a couple of weeks, Tiger and Phil, golf's most fascinating rivalry. And Tiger is looking like he's going to play this weekend. Of course, follow Bob on Twitter for the full coverage of the Masters this weekend at Bob Herrig on Twitter. Bob, the other thing I think is interesting, another storyline, because I feel like there's 100 storylines with Tiger going into this weekend, is Tiger is 46 years old. Jack Nicklaus was 46 when he won his final Masters. Is that irony kind of like falling to the wayside, or is anybody else talking about that at all down there?
It's funny. When Jack was 46, it was almost like he was ancient. 46 was viewed as so old back then. I'm not sure we view it the same way. And yet Jack didn't have any real physical maladies at that time. What kept him from competing then was other interests. He had a long career. He wasn't as engaged in working on his game, and he hadn't been playing all that great that year. And obviously all-star cast of players he went up against: Seve Ballesteros, Norman, Tom Kite, Nick Price. Tom Watson was in the mix at that Masters. So it's funny because it's a great point. People don't seem to make that big of a deal out of Tiger's age, as if it was 10 years ago when he's coming back from this. We probably should make more of it. He was going to be in a difficult way at this point in his career, even without the car crash. He's had a lot of injury problems over the years, the back issues, and a left knee problem. And the longer he goes, obviously, the more difficult this is going to be. It's almost like the crash injuries have made us forget that, he was dealing with other stuff too before all that. So I think it's an interesting analogy to Jack. Obviously the two players have been linked as part of golf history for so long. And, look, Jack was the oldest Masters winner at age 46. And I think if Tiger were to do that, he'd clip him by about a month to become the oldest. So it's pretty interesting to think of it in those terms.
Bob, another thing I keep thinking about is, the last time we saw Tiger play a full round of golf with his son, with that pairing that they had. And his son is with him again this week. I remember the last time he won the Masters, how, he ran, he embraced his family, he was crying at everything. What can you get into detail about the family aspect for Tiger right now? Because it seems like in this part of Tiger's life, family means so much to him, and maybe even more than maybe some people realize.
There's no question it's a big part. I think it's one of the things that keeps him going. He uses it as motivation to show them, his kids what made his dad famous. Well, what made their dad famous, his daughter as well. And a couple of years ago, he talked about the disappointment of coming up short at the British Open at Carnoustie, because he said it was the first time my kids were there to be able to see me in contention. They only knew me as the guy who golf brought pain to. And now they got to watch me do that, and I wasn't able to get it done. And that disappointed him. So I think, for his son, Charlie, who plays golf himself, I think Tiger playing, is a good thing. It gives them stuff to talk about. I think it helps keep him motivated. And obviously he's got a lot more life perspective now that he didn't used to have. 20 years ago when he was his mid-20s and the singular focus was on golf, there were probably maturity issues. He hadn't quite grown up. He was in the limelight for so long, and now he's got this perspective that I think, first of all, it makes the failures easier to deal with. But I think there's just an appreciation now that he can share with them.
Bob Harrod from Sports Illustrated joining us right now here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you can follow Bob on Twitter at Bob Harrod. The Masters are this weekend. Bob, let's get into the book a little bit because, I was reading some stuff from the book the last few days, and one of the things that stood out to me the most about this rivalry, as the title of your book is Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry, Tiger and Phil. One of the things that's fascinating to me is how Tiger and Phil come from such different worlds. And I know to some people well, it's obvious, look at them. But, just because you look at two people, it doesn't always mean they're that different on the outside. To me, there is a lot that goes into both of their upbringings and who they are as people that I think seems to play into this rivalry.
Yeah, look, Tiger's dad, Earl, was very, very well known for being a big part of his career, big influence. He was a larger than life figure himself, and he commanded attention. He didn't mind interviews. He spoke glowingly of his son, gave him all the opportunities that he could, did his best, to be able to do right by his son. Phil's dad was also heavily into his career, but way much more in the background. He was never out front, but he taught him, that's where he started. And, so they both had loving sets of parents who were going to do anything they could to help. And then they were incredible junior players, both of them. Phil was Tiger before Tiger. Amazing player as a young guy. Won everything as a kid in San Diego, junior events. Then he won 3 NCAA titles at Arizona State and a PGA Tour event while he was a junior. It's the last amateur to win on tour. Tiger never won on tour as an amateur. In fact, he never came close. So Phil kind of had that over Tiger. And many people, if you ask back then, not knowing what we know now, of course, they would have thought that Phil would have had the better pro career based on what he had done as an amateur. He had actually contended a couple times and was a big guy, strong kid who could hit it far, had a lot going for him, played very, very well in college, won a U.S. amateur. Tiger won 3 U.S. amateurs, but, the U.S. amateur doesn't guarantee you pro success. It's not the format that's played week in and week out in golf. And Tiger had some close calls in the amateur. He had a rally to beat guys who were a lot older than him, who weren't going to be pros. And so there was a thought that maybe Phil would have been better. And then, of course, Tiger took off, and Phil was frustrated at not being able to keep up. And then he finally made some inroads. There's definitely things there. Just the fact that they've been at both at a high level for so long, I think, is what fuels part of the rivalry, because each of them were going for the same stuff, and they knew the other guy was in the way.
Bob, in the individual sports world, rivalries have just a much different feel, because in team sports, people talk about, Brady and Manning. Well, they never played face to face. They never played one-on-one. Whereas in golf or tennis or, even maybe in an arena like gymnastics or something, these are individual athletes who are looking at each other's scores, looking at each other's performances. And to me, there's more fire, more juice in a rivalry like this because, you go back to the 80s with Borg and McEnroe or Sampras and Agassi in the 90s to use the tennis analogy. When those guys looked at each other sometimes, I mean, it was like, they were burning holes through each other.
There's no doubt. And I think it helps to have a little bit of tension or friction between them. And that was clearly there throughout, the many years that they were on top. I mean, there were awkward moments. There were times where, they wanted nothing to do with each other. They weren't going to praise each other. There was a Ryder Cup where they were teammates. They were actually partners, and they lost both matches, and they were vilified. And the excuse or the reason is that, hey, look, they couldn't get along, and so how could they be good teammates? I think some of that is a little bit overblown, but I write about that in the book. They did not look like they were on the same team the way they acted, and the result carried through. So their careers really did intersect for a long time, even if there weren't maybe as many head-to-head battles as I think we would have liked. I think that would have made it even better. But I think that's what makes it a little bit more interesting, is that they still remained that way despite not having all that many times where they were actually in the same group, going head-to-head.
The book is Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry. The author, Bob Herrick from Sports Illustrated, joining us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You can pre-order it now through Amazon or wherever books are sold, or you can do what I did and do the Audible pre-order, so you automatically get the download when it pops up on the server. Bob, if I can ask you just a bigger picture Masters question this weekend, because obviously Tiger's going to draw the eyeballs. He's going to draw the extra attention. But when people watch, I think most people believe that Tiger may not win the tournament. He may be in the running if he can, keep walking and everything's all good. Who are the guys that you're keeping an eye on who are not named Tiger Woods who you think can take the green jacket this year?
Well, I think the guy I'm looking at the most is Justin Thomas. I just sort of feel like this is his time. And the reason is that I actually like guys who are playing well but who haven't won recently. They're a little bit under the radar. We look at somebody like Scotty Scheffler, who's won 3 tournaments here recently. Cam Smith won the Players Championship. Those are names at the forefront. They're excellent players, and Scheffler's number 1 in the world, and Cam Smith's 3rd or 4th. Certainly those guys have a great chance. But in history, guys don't win late and win the Masters that often. It happens. Tiger and Phil have both done it, but it's more rare. Hideki Matsuyama won last year, hadn't won in forever. Nobody was talking about him going in. I don't think too many people were talking about Sergio in 2017. He had such a tough run in the majors, and he had won earlier in the year in Dubai, but not on the PGA Tour leading in. I think it's more about the guys who are playing decently. We've got John Rahm hasn't won since he won the U.S. Open last June. So, and this golf course suits him beautifully. So if he can get his game together, he's a guy you got to watch as well.
Masters this weekend. Tiger is there. He expects to play. Bob Herrick will have all the coverage for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Bob Herrick. And don't forget to pre-order his new book, Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry, at Amazon or wherever books are sold. Bob, I appreciate you jumping on the conversation. Great stuff today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of CLC. Back to your guys' thoughts and comments on the other side. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You can also DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And don't forget, coming up less than 15 minutes from now, your final chance today on air to qualify for the Eagles draft party. Pick your trip, your chance to go to an Eagles road game, full expenses paid. Great stuff. Of course, the draft party will be this year. The Sports Bash Mike Gill will be live Thursday, April 28th at Slack Tie Brewing from 2 to 6 p.m. And of course, Pick Your Trip is all courtesy of Philly Sports Trips. Do Philly Sports Trips with the pros. Plan your trip at phillysportstrips.com. Also brought to you by Ernest & Sons Old Fashioned Butcher Shop in Brigantine.
Coming up on the next edition of Greeny with Mike Greenberg.
But I could, after what he has done, never root for James Harden, because here's what it is. He quits on Houston, gets himself what he wants, gets to Brooklyn. Quits on Brooklyn, get himself what he wants, goes to Philly. Is completely out of shape still, and is going to cost the Sixers whatever it is they might win, and is still going to get a $250 million contract extension from Philly.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
The free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help troubleshoot the likely cause of your pesky check engine light for free and get you back on the road. Restrictions apply. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
You know your closet well, but what does it sound like? Yes, your closet. Does it whisper your taste? Does it scream your taste? Stitch Fix gets to know your unique style and fit. Its selection transforms to show you only the looks and trends you'll love. With a shopping experience that evolves alongside your taste, your closet will scream so you without actually screaming. Stitch Fix for women and men. We're so you.
Why is it that every March, everyone's either a basketball bracketologist expert or 100% Irish? Not that there's anything wrong with the two. All you need to know this March is at Matt Blatt Kia in Egg Harbor Township or Toms River. If you have a job clearing $350 per week, you could be approved. And don't forget, you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
Gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Here at Total Wine & More, you'll find what you love and love what you find.
I really like this Cabernet, but what's something new?
You'll love this one.
Wow! You're good.
Find what you love what you find. Only at Total Wine & More. Wondrous selection, expert guides, totally low prices. Drink responsibly, B21.
Circle up, team. We've got status.
Evelyn's marketing consultancy client roster is skyrocketing.
Okay, so this week is a biggie. We've got the pitch and 3 client meetings.
She needs another analyst before her team's free time plummets.
Who's running the competitive analysis on fruit snacks?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our hiring platform instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
O'Reilly. If your vehicle squeals or grinds when you slow down or just isn't stopping like it used to, you may need new brakes. Through May 24th, check out the spring brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts and get 15% off a set of Brake Best Select or Import Direct brake pads with 2 rotors. Restore safe braking and save money now at O'Reilly Auto Parts or shop online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Let's be real. Mopping is a hassle. You have to fill the bucket, pushing a wet, heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer Wet Jet. With Swiffer Wet Jet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer Wet Jet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. You know me, I'm a huge football fan, but it can be stressful for us super fans. So Progressive is going to help take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how your team threw the wrong ball on the wrong net, just think about how Home Court Explorer lets you easily compare our direct rates with multiple companies. Well, hope this distraction about Progressive's Home Court Explorer was helpful. It sure helped me from stressing about my team for a bit. Anyway, go sports.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
With basketball season in full swing and UFC every weekend, it's time for you to experience sports betting done right at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Atlantic City Casino and Resort. Get in on all the games you love at the FanDuel Sportsbook, located right off the Atlantic City Boardwalk. The retail sportsbook features 5 betting windows, a large video wall, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and much more. Get your game face on and score big when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook only at Bally's Atlantic City Casino and Resort. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Sixers back in action tonight, coming up at 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app for your Sixers coverage all year round. You know, I don't know if Joel Embiid is going to win the MVP now, because it seems like some of these voters, as I agree with Joel Embiid, they're biased against him. But Joel Embiid still has a chance to win the scoring title. Right now, Joel Embiid is averaging 30.2 points per game. Giannis is right behind him at 30.1, and LeBron is ahead of him at 30.3. Now, here's the interesting thing. There is a possibility LeBron's play the rest of the regular season. There's a lot of word out there that the Lakers are going to shut him down, and if they make the play-in round, he'll play. If they don't make the play-in round, he'll just sit and just rest the rest of the season. So if LeBron's not going to play, that 30.3 is going to stay right where it is, which gives Joel and Giannis a number to shoot for. If Joel Embiid does lead the NBA in scoring, he will be the first center to do so since Shaquille O'Neal over 20 years ago. So tonight, Joel will have another shot to add to his statistical numbers. And of course, you can hear the action right here on your home for Sixers basketball, 97.3 ESPN FM. Back to the text board, 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea City. Dan from EHT chimes in and says, oddly, the Eagles put emphasis on linebacker back when they got Nigel Bradham, and then they won the Super Bowl. Well, here's the thing, Dan, EHT. The Eagles as an organization agreed to get Bradham because Jim Schwartz, when they brought him in with Doug Peterson, part of the agreement was they were going to get Schwartz players that he needed to run his defense. Remember, they signed Leotis McKelvin. They brought in Nigel Bradham. They were trying to, the next year they brought in Ronald Darby in the Jordan Matthews trade. They were trying to bring guys in who could know Schwartz's defense from their time with him in Buffalo and who were quality players. And Bradham happened to fit that mold. So to me, it was less of a specific emphasis on linebacker than it was ensuring that Schwartz had guys on the field, in the locker room, in the coach's film room, who knew the kind of defense he wanted to run. And then Bradham became a huge part of the Super Bowl team because when Jordan Hicks went down, Bradham became the play caller on the field. He became the guy with the circle on his helmet, getting the calls in from the coaches, calling it out. And between him and Malcolm Jenkins, they were the captains and commanders of the defense. So, yes, Bradham was a huge part of them winning the Super Bowl, but don't confuse what the Eagles did in bringing in a guy who understood Schwartz's defense with specifically emphasis on linebackers. It was emphasis on getting Schwartz guys who knew his defense. I think it's a little different. On top of that, I would also say that, remember, they brought in Eric Wilson because he knew Gannon's defense, and within a few weeks, he basically was benched. He didn't play the second half of the season barely at all, it seemed like. They really went heavy on the TJ Edwards, Alex Singleton train once Davion Taylor got injured. So I'm going to assume that, again, as I said previously, the Eagles are not going to draft a linebacker, and I can't think of a free agent they would specifically get. I think they already got White. I think getting Kazir White was the guy they were going to get. To me, I tend to believe that White is the guy that kind of fills the void of what they need at linebacker. They need a guy who has range, who can fill the gaps, who can chase down tackles. I think he makes sense for Gannon's defense. I think that was the investment at the linebacker position. Text messages coming in at 609-403-0973. Texter says, I think the Eagles are going to pick Johnson from Florida State, the defensive end, and then Treylon Burks, a wide receiver from Arkansas in the first round. I don't think it's a far-fetched prediction. I think that's pretty close to being accurate. I think that Burks, like I said previously, makes a lot of sense because the Eagles have already been a heavy part of his pro day. Their wide receiver coach, Aaron Moorhead, ran Burks' workouts. I think the Eagles definitely need a guy like Burks. You know, you look at Treylon Burks, and he has the body type that makes sense for this team. This team has a lot of smaller, speedy kind of guys. Well, Burks is 6'3", 225. And he's a freak athlete. He is the kind of guy that you want playing on the other outside receiver position across from Devonta Smith. He has the body type and the skills to do so. Now, my concern with Burks is that I don't know how good he'll be day one, because I think part of Burks' success at the combine did not 100% reflect what he did on the field, because Burks had a 4.55 40-yard dash. Honestly, I think his game speed is faster than that. You saw that he had a 33-inch vertical jump. Not a great jump, but the end of the day is that he didn't get all of his yards off the jump. I think a lot of people were looking at his numbers at the combine and mischaracterizing him. Burks is a first-round pick because he was the number one receiver on the Arkansas offense that realistically didn't have a lot. So, to me, I look at Burks as a guy who found the way to get open, found a way to get yards, found a way to be productive in a mediocre offense with an average college quarterback. Now you give him an NFL offense that can help accentuate his skill set with better play callers, with a better, Jalen Hurts is definitely better than Arkansas's quarterback Jefferson. Okay, let's be realistic. There's no arguing that. If you think that the Arkansas quarterback is better than Jalen Hurts, you need to have a doctor see you. You might be sick or something. Okay, so to me, I like the idea of Burks. I just would rather him get a veteran receiver. Johnson, as I said before, I don't know what their plans are for him. He does make some sense, though. One more message to squeeze in here before we get out of here. Anthony in Atlantic City chimes in. He says, I'm not an Eagles fan here, but I am from Pittsburgh, and I'm all about Pennsylvania. But I do believe the Eagles should target Landry Jones for free agency to give Hurts a possession receiver who can also help out a younger wide receiver, preferably Smith. Here's the thing with Jarvis Landry. I love the idea of Landry coming to Philadelphia. You get two problems, Anthony, in Atlantic City with the Landry thing. Number one, Landry has spent a lot of the last several years playing slot receiver. If he plays slot receiver, then you're requiring Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor to be on the outside. So the first question I would have is, can Landry play both the X and the slot receiver? If he can, great. If he doesn't want to do that, then maybe he's not a fit here. Number two, Landry fired his agent because he thought he was going to get big money in the free agent market. Now that he didn't get that big money in the free agent market, he's in a position now where he's questioning what his market value is. And my argument to Landry would be, stop worrying about your market value and just go out there and find a team to rebuild your value, hit the market again. Maybe that team is Philadelphia. Maybe it's not. But the question is, does Landry want a lot of money? I love the idea of Landry. He is definitely a guy who can catch the ball. I mean, honestly, if you're from Pittsburgh and you're a Steelers fan, maybe you want Jarvis Landry. I'm just saying. Right now, speaking of the NFL draft, your chance to be a qualifier for Pick Your Trip at this year's Eagles draft party. That's right. Caller number 7 at 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Caller number 7, you will be a qualifier to win. Pick your trip at the Eagles draft party. Win an Eagles road trip thanks to Philly Sports Trips and Ernest & Sons Old Fashioned Butcher Shop. The Sports Bash with Mike Gill will be live Thursday, April 28th from 2 to 6 p.m. at Slack Tide Brewing on Route 83, just north of Cape May Courthouse. 55 after every hour. This is your last chance. Caller number 7, 609-573-3776. You are a qualifier with Pick Your Trip, courtesy of Philly Sports Trips and Ernest & Sons Old Fashioned Butcher Shop and Brigantine. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Sixers basketball next.
Health update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.